Yearbookers, welcome to Yearbooks Live, the podcast for yearbook teams to learn everything you need to know about the yearbook business with our weekly 10-minute yearbook lessons for the real world. I'm your host, your coach, your teacher, JP, coming to you from sunny South Florida. This is episode number 4 of Yearbooks Live. Today we want to talk a little bit about staffing, what your yearbook staff should consist of in the high schools and the middle schools, and how a PTA might look as well if you're doing it in the elementary schools through the PTA. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Today's episode of Yearbooks Live is supported by Yearbook Life. If you're looking for a quality yearbook that's easy to create at a lower price, then Yearbook Life may be what you're looking for. There's no need to still be paying the high cost of yearbooks. Service and support are as important to Yearbook Life as they are to you. Get all the same great features, benefits, and much more at Yearbook Life at yearbooklife.com. In today's episode, we want to break down staffing and the different types of staffing and what roles your staff can take in each yearbook class or each yearbook club. Keep in mind that this is just a starting point. It's just a guide to help you define what your staff will look like. Keep in mind that all schools are different. They don't all have to look this way. You can take a variation of this and make it your own. But this episode should definitely give you a real good start on creating a staff for your yearbook. So in regards to staffing, there's a ton of different variations. However, today we're going to break it down into just really 3 different small little groups. 1, high schools, 2, middle schools, and 3, elementary schools. So keep in mind, for high schools, there's big schools that submit for JEA awards, big class sizes, big yearbook class, lots of helpers within that class. You have smaller high schools, still may submit to JEA for competition, but probably just want to put out a quality product at a fair price, might not have a real big class. And so that's a lot of schools nowadays. There's middle schools, which also can be similar to the high schools, might not be as big as the high schools, but may have a class, may have a club. Then there's elementary schools. Elementary schools vary. You can have a PTA parent, mom, dad, that is actually in charge of the yearbook on a parent level. You might have the art teacher who's available, who just might bring in a parent volunteer or another teacher in to help. So there's a lot of different variations in these 3 categories, and we're going to discuss them a little bit here. Okay, let's talk about high schools first. Again, keep in mind this is just a guide, and your high school can have some, none, or all of the type of staff that we'll talk about here. So first and foremost, you're going to have a director. That can mean a lot of different things. Some of you might call it an administrator or an admin, a yearbook teacher, a yearbook advisor, something like that. Someone who's in charge. Someone who's going to be in charge of the page allocation and design. You're going to be the one responsible for choosing pictures and making sure there's no inappropriate pictures in the book. You might choose fonts. That person might choose placement of the book and the layout of the book and the design of the book, deadline management, scheduling appointments with your rep, coordination with all of the other staff that's going to be on your yearbook team. So you're going to have a leader, someone that's in charge of all of the things that go in your yearbook and everything that there is that you're going to need to be able to put the book together. Now that you have this yearbook admin, the yearbook advisor, or the yearbook teacher, or someone in charge, there's going to be a lot of different staff that's going to work under that person. You're going to have people like photographers. They're going to be responsible for taking all the pictures at the school and scheduling different events to be photographed and sports to be photographed. You're going to have writers and caption writers and headline writers, and they're going to write all the stories and the different things within the book and within the yearbook. You're going to have proofers. They're going to be reading all of the headlines. They're going to be reading all of the stories and proofing them and making sure that spelling is correct. You're going to be making sure that all the images that are in the book are not inappropriate and that they're good quality. You're going to have trainers that are going to teach the software. Your yearbook rep, well, that person can probably help you with the teaching of the software. Someone in the class can be responsible for the training of those people that are going to use the software as well. You're going to need to have somebody who's in charge of getting all the advertisements together and getting them paid for and getting them created and make sure that everybody who's paid for an advertisement gets in the yearbook. So someone's going to need to be in charge of the ads. Again, All of these are very important pieces of making the best yearbook possible. One of the things I recommend in high schools, especially big high schools, is to have a finance manager. A finance manager is responsible for the budget and the numbers and the money. And there can be quite a bit of money when it comes to some big high school books. And you need a finance manager to be responsible for the money and everything that comes with it. So for instance, you want that finance manager to be in charge of accounting, helping with the distribution of the book, the marketing, the yearbook sales, advertisements, fundraising if you're doing a fundraiser, operational costs, marketing costs. You want to do an income versus expense spreadsheet so you can make sure that you're not losing money on the book. Promoting and selling the book. Make sure you're following the budget. You want to make sure you balance the yearbook budget. You want to track all payments and make sure that whoever paid for a book got a book. You want to manage and track all the expenses. So a finance manager can be one person that oversees all of the finances and different levels underneath. So I highly recommend in every big high school, especially a finance manager. In the middle schools, it's very similar to how a high school can work. Now, in some middle schools, you're not going to necessarily have the big class that some of the bigger high schools might have. You might have to work like a smaller high school does, where you have some of these different key tasks and roles played by individuals, but not every single one. So your yearbook teacher might be the one that's in charge of, or is your finance manager. She might be, or he might be, you're the one selling ads, whatever it might be. So middle schools can work very similar to the high schools, but they don't need every single piece that a big high school might. But it is important for the middle schools to also have staffing to make it the best yearbook possible. All right, now let's talk about the book in the elementary school and who puts the book together in the elementary school. It can work in many different ways. However, one of the ways that I want to talk about today is the PTA parent, the PTA mom or dad who's volunteered their time and many hours of putting the book together and being responsible for the yearbook. A lot of times it's by yourself, it's late nights when the kids are sleeping, you got a glass of wine sitting next to you and you're doing your best work. You're going to want to try your best to recruit volunteers. Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get dozens of people to volunteer in the beginning. You're going to have an open house in the beginning of the school year where everybody comes and signs up for all these clubs and all these different events for the yearbook. And it's going to come time for it to actually happen, and no one's going to be there, or very few. So what you want to do is you make sure that when you take on the yearbook as a PTA mom or a PTA dad, you definitely find select few people that you can count on. And you want to give them some of the chores or some of the responsibilities that we talked about earlier when it comes to high schools. Someone's got to be responsible for pictures. Someone's got to be responsible for content and what's in the book. Someone's got to be responsible for ads, and if you're doing ads, and selling yearbooks and marketing yearbooks and distribution of yearbooks and all of that goes with it. I highly recommend when you're doing it as a PTA that you don't get too many people involved. I will tell you, more hands in the cookie jar, the more people are going to tell you how to make your book work, what should be in your book. Make this your own, but be careful. One of the things I'll recommend to you PTA moms and PTA dads, also don't put your child in the book so much. People are going to call you out on that. And I'm just going to warn you just from experience, that's going to happen. Put your kid in the book in great places throughout the book, but just make sure it's, sporadic enough where it doesn't seem overwhelming. Another thing I highly recommend is only one administrator. In some of the yearbook software today, you can have multiple administrators, meaning people who can actually submit the book for printing and make the final decision. I recommend highly only one person be the administrator. You do not want too many chiefs making a decision for your yearbook. Somebody has to be responsible for the final product and for the final decisions. So again, only one administrator. One other point I want to make to you as well is no matter how great your yearbook will come out, no matter if it's a high school, middle school, or elementary school, someone's going to complain about the design of your book. Someone in the school, someone online, someone on social media, someone somewhere is gonna complain about your work. It's just the nature of the beast today. It's been that way actually for as long as I can remember. If you have that, especially as a PTA in an elementary school, where you get a parent come and they start complaining about your design and they would have done it this way and if they didn't like that and they should have done it that way. I always have a nice line I like to give to everybody. You just simply ask them that we appreciate your concern. We thank you for your feedback. We welcome you to be on our yearbook committee next year so that they can help make all the decisions necessary to make the greatest book ever. They'll run away usually the minute you tell them that. Again, don't forget, everybody's going to complain, or I'm sorry, somebody's going to complain. Don't take it personal. You've put in a lot of work and a lot of effort into this, and you should be proud of it. We could talk a whole lot more about staffing, but in our 10 to 12 minutes, we don't have a whole lot of time to do that. But I do want to thank you so much today for listening to our show. We want to also thank our sponsor, Yearbook Life, at yearbooklife.com. We hope you'll stay with us, listen to all of our upcoming episodes. I say it every week. I'm so grateful to you, and thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe. Tell all your friends. Let everybody know. You can visit our show anywhere you can listen to a podcast, on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Next week, we're going to be interviewing a fantastic photographer, good friend of mine for a lot of years. His name is Kurt Ricks at Amazing Imagery. We're going to discuss photography essentials. Kurt actually started out years ago as a yearbook photographer and has become a real successful professional photographer. And he'll be here to provide some great insight. Should be fun.